All right, Mech Warriors, we've been focusing primarily on the inner sphere for the past couple of vlogs, looking at the tech, the tools, and the tactics. But now we're going to look at the clans. The invasion has begun, and we're going to begin with exploring some iconic clan mechs and some of the Fritz favorites. Some of my favorite clan mechs representing Jade Falcon that I like to play on the tabletop. And then we're going to move into battle armor. And then finally, vehicles, combined arms. Certainly in the narrative and the focus of clan tech, like the inner sphere, it is Battletech. Mechs are key. Mechs are king. And we also have supporting battle armor, which also opens up an interesting dimension as you begin to advance the early invasion timeline. Battle armor for the inner sphere. But there's also a lot of clan vehicles and clan support that can possibly be utilized in Battletech. Now, I have to say from the narrative side, how I try to approach the clans. I do the same thing when I play X-Wing miniatures, and it drives a couple of my friends absolutely crazy, but I have a really fun time playing this perspective. Now, admittedly, I'm not as immersed in the Star Wars mythology. I mean, I approach X-Wing miniatures as a tactical game. I do tend to play it a little bit more competitive, but like you, growing up with Star Wars, it has had a tremendous impact, but I'm not blinded by it. And I can accept the fact that restoring order to the galaxy is paramount, and that perhaps the Imperial Navy, perhaps they're the good guys from that perspective. Jumping into the clans, I like to approach the clans the same way. I mean, the inner sphere squandering the legacy of the Star League. Their Desgara actions, their petty wars back and forth, just destroying society. What if the clans are correct? Restoring order, prosperity, dignity, equal human rights to the inner sphere. So I think if you allow yourself to kind of take the obvious of what the clans are and flip it around, it opens up a lot of possibilities. And I say that from that perspective, pulling that narrative to the tactics. What we have to understand with the clans, and this leads to this iconic mech. I mean, you see the title, and right away, launching the invasion with the clans, Jade Falcon into the inner sphere. I mean, this is an iconic mech, but it is also symbolic of not only the best of clan technology, but it shows what the inner sphere tries to do. It shows what the inner sphere tech tries to do. This is the jumping in point for the clan mechs. Looking at the Timberwolf. Inner sphere designation Mad Cat, right? The narrative of the targeting computer first encounters this, doesn't know what it is. Is it a marauder, designation Mad, or is it a catapult, designation, cat, Mad Cat, moving back and forth? So this is an iconic inner sphere mech in that it is an auto-include. Now, we talked about this earlier in the inner sphere, ironically, the catapult, based on the rules in Battletech, based on the kind of the universal laws of wargaming, there are certain configurations that are going to work optimally. One of the main things, of course, is redundancy. This ability that I'm trying to do something on the table. I'm trying to hit you. I'm trying to tag you with some missiles. I'm trying to hit you with something. The more dice I roll, the more chances that I have to hit, the better the outcome. Now, in Battletech, this is a sliding scale. I'm going to try and pull down, right? We start with a pilot skill, gunnery skill, various skills in Battletech. I'm going to try and pull that number down. You're going to try and increase that number up. But we start with that base number reflecting that mech warrior. If I fire one PPC, even with lower odds, I only have one shot. If I can fire two, or I can fire three, then that increases the odds. And what holds back the inner sphere from this, certainly there are configurations where you will see redundancy, but what holds it back is tonnage, range, and heat. The clans have to deal with this, but advancing their tech, things tend to be lighter. They tend to cause more damage, and they tend to create less heat or create the same amount of heat, but the double heat sinks can dissipate it. So when you have a solid design in the inner sphere that has that redundancy, and you map that over to the clans and clan tech, like with the Timberwolf, now it takes on a potency more than you can possibly imagine. And this is a devastatingly deadly mech. We start off with two ER large lasers, extended range large lasers. So the first trip, I mean, imagine yourself as an inner sphere mech warrior. You're encountering this, and your targeting computer is like, okay, it's a Marauder, but it has some sort of laser configuration. You're at a range, or maybe it knows you're in range, and you're like, that calculation can't be right. You're going to start lighting up on the table. Those ER large lasers means that you have range and you have redundancy to start shooting, combined with dual heat sinks. Right away, that alone is a threat, combined with the armor and the speed of the Timberwolf, pushing it down on the table. So you're going to have to act very, very aggressive. And it's got that duality. It's got that redundancy. When we get a little closer, we've got the ER medium lasers. So we have these two range brackets right away where I can hit you from the large lasers. I can switch over when I want to start managing heat to the medium lasers. And on top of that, I've got a pulse laser. Now, we're talking about the primary configurations. These are Omni-Mechs, and we're going to jump into some of the configurations with the Omni-Mechs just so you're aware of it. I tend to review and play Prime because that's the starting point. But much like the variants in the Inner Sphere, you are going to kind of move into your variants with the various clans and the various tech. And as you build out your stars, as a star commander, there is the possibility to switch that. The pulse laser is where things get interesting. And this is the marriage of clan tech, where you have the duality of the extended range lasers will outrange the Inner Sphere. The pulse lasers will make it easier to hit the target with the modifiers, which if you can have the duality, even though there's only one, we don't have the redundancy here. If you can catch with pulse lasers, if you can catch a mech out in the open, so if I can catch you out in the open, no cover, maybe not really moving, and I won't say that I'm just going to park and not move, but if I can keep my movement down to walking or I'm standing still, that's just an insane punch. So right away you have this mech with the firepower, with the range, with the duality. It's just going to chew through Inner Sphere mechs. It's just going to absolutely chew through them. And this is a workhorse. This is the workhorse of the clans. We back this up at range. We'll talk about the machine guns. 2 long-range missile 20 packs. So you've got 2 20 packs at range. You could do indirect. You could. Indirect still exists in the rules. And certainly I would say that in many ways the clans can do indirect better because they have some really, really fast scout mechs, light mechs, tech mechs. You've got battle armor, which you don't have to play. You don't have to include battle armor in your star, but it is kind of implied that it's there, and a lot of mechs will have the hookups to ride those into battle. Side note, check your calculations. Check your calculations for your battle ride in. I played a game where I didn't take enough mechs, so I didn't have enough hookups. And I had a stand of battle armor, star of battle armor, just walking it. I miscalculated. And it walked and ran and jumped and tried to get up there, but essentially for the game, it did nothing. So that was battle value that was not included. You don't need the hookups. You could have them walk, just like in the Inner Sphere counterpart. I could take infantry and have them on foot. I don't necessarily have to make them jump. I don't have to Karnov them up. But ideally speaking, you want to have some sort of delivery system unless it's a fixed battle or an attacker versus defender scenario. Then save your battle value or take those Karnovs and pack them with the variant with the autocannon 20s. Almost double as important, and we're going to jump into battle armor. Certainly, we're going to jump into battle armor. Doubly important with the clans because, generally speaking, you're faster than the Inner Sphere, and your fast clan mechs that have those hookups for the Omni-Mechs, just absolutely. That delivery system is incredible. We have those long-range 20s. They'll be able to fire. They can indirect. They have redundancy on all levels. And then finally, machine guns. Finally speaking, machine guns. And this is interesting. This is interesting because I won't say clans are more vulnerable to infantry, but most of the clan mechs are going to rely on higher echelon tech, meaning lasers, the ER or the pulse. You'll have the ER PPCs. You have streaks. You have various missile configurations. It's not to say machine guns don't exist, but dedicated anti-infantry based on clan warfare and their approach, it's not as prevalent as, say, the Inner Sphere, where the Inner Sphere knows, based on kind of the Star League and based on fighting through the Succession era, you see a lot of mechs. I mean, certainly you find mechs that are dedicated anti-infantry, but you see a lot of mechs that have these machine guns. Now, the truth is, in the rules, that was just an early adaptation. But from that perspective, I will say that clans are a little bit more vulnerable to infantry. And if you take a lot of infantry, it can be a little bit of a pain for clans to deal with that, especially when they are forced to close and if you can get them to close. That's not saying they're completely vulnerable, but the Timberwolf has this all combined with 15 heat sinks. So where's the drawback? Fritz, I'm just going to take 4 of these auto includes and move with it. Well, the drawback is this. We're clocking in. This is before we jack things up or down based on the actual stats of the Mech Warrior, 2,737 battle value. And this is an excellent mech. You will never go wrong with including this mech in your build, but we're not even talking higher end assault mechs. We're not even talking higher end heavies from that perspective. The battle value goes up. So this perfectly illustrates, yes, you do have a God mode. Yes, you do have a technological advantage, a tremendous advantage. Even before we throw in the clan rules of issuing challenges and playing from that perspective, which I encourage you, absolutely, to play from that perspective, but it is optional. Looking at this, you're going to be outnumbered. You need to aggressively leverage this tremendous destructive potency, this advantage of the duality of having the redundancy and having the tech at these levels and really, really being ruthless with it, committing. I'm not saying don't play conservative, but committing, because at that battle value price tag, regardless of my build, whether I'm pure mech or combined arms, I am going to outnumber you. And that's how we want to approach. Be aware, and I also started this with this mech to illustrate, be aware of the tremendous advantage. Be aware that this is an auto-include. Be aware that this is an excellent, excellent mech, but it does come at that battle value buy-in.